So have you ever walked into the kitchen and saw a pile of dishes and you just found yourself frustrated that they were left there because you know those dishes weren't caused by you? And have you ever passively aggressively placed them in someone else's path just to ensure that they saw, that you saw, that they weren't done, in hopes that they might just clean them? I'll admit I've done that, and I think now I'm realizing out of conviction that just ain't right. Well, today I find myself convicted by our passage that we find as we're reading through the whole story in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, 9, and 10. You see Paul is talking about our rights. The other day, I came home from work after having not eaten a whole lot that day. I worked through lunch, and I was sort of tired and hungry and a little overwhelmed when I entered the house because I've got 4 kids, ages 7, 5, 3, and 1. And so, to be honest, I'm hangry, hungry and angry, and I realize that I don't have enough attention that I can give to satisfy all 4 of my kids. They all want my attention, and I just don't have enough. They want 150% of me, and all I have is 100%. And so I found myself getting more hangry and angry, and so much so that I had to step outside in order to cool off. And I was thinking about it as I was walking outside. What causes anger inside of me? What causes this kind of anger to bellow up? It might be dishes, it might be being overwhelmed, but what's the root of it? And I think as I was thinking about the root of most of our anger, a lot of times is that we expect that we deserve something, and those expectations aren't met. Right? I mean, we have these hopes that things will turn out one way, but the reality is that they turn out a different way. And so when our expectations aren't met, when reality is that our expectations are unmet, we find ourselves frustrated and we get angry in different ways. We express this anger in different ways. Some of us yell, scream, shout. Some of us are passive aggressive. Some of us try to inflict pain or hurt on others. But some of us even just seethe inside and we think really negative thoughts but don't tell anyone, and our faces just remain exactly the same. But Paul talks about what we should do when it comes to our rights and how we treat others. In 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 17, Paul's talking about how he preaches to the 1 Corinthians. He says, if I were doing this on my own initiative, I would deserve payment, but I have no choice, for God has given me this sacred trust. He said, what then is my pay? It is the opportunity to preach the good news without charging anyone. That's why I never demand my rights when I preach the good news. So here Paul is, he enters into the situation where he's preaching to the Corinthians and he should get paid for that, yet he lowers the bar of his expectations so low that he doesn't even expect to get any kind of payment. Why? Because he has a priority in his life that the good news is preached. That trumps all of his other expectations, all of his other hopes, all of his rights are subservient to the good news being preached. So my wife Brittany and I, we talk about expectations a lot, and we say, let's lower the bar so low that it's no matter what happens, we find ourselves feeling blessed. And so, for instance, the other night, my kids, we told them that they were going to get dessert after dinner. And they said, oh, I bet it's going to be this big cake. And Brittany said, I bet it's just going to be dirt. If you expect dirt, anything you get will be a blessing. So what if we had this kind of expectation that the bar of expectation is that whatever the cost, whatever is at stake, the most important priority is that the good news be preached, that the gospel be preached. Paul talks about how even though he's a free man with no master, he says, I've become a slave to all people to bring all to Christ. To the Jews, he became a Jew. To the Gentiles, in verse 21, he became a Gentile. In verse 22, he says, when I'm with those who are weak, I share their weakness so that I can bring the weak to Christ. Paul's priority is the gospel. That drives all of his decisions, all of his opinions. And so I think if we're going to get angry, let us get angry that the gospel isn't being preached. Let us get angry that our disunity is harming our testimony. And so are we willing to do anything for the sake of the gospel being preached? In chapter 10, verse 31, Paul says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. Don't give offense to Jews or Gentiles or the church of God. I, too, try to please everyone in everything I do. I don't just do what's best for me. I do what is best for others so that others may be saved. What if you wore a face mask for the sake of others? Whether you like them or not, whether you have the right to not wear them or not, what if that became a non-issue because the gospel takes priority? And fill in the blank with whatever issue you are finding yourself getting angered about. How does it relate to the gospel being preached? How does it relate to those needing to be saved? So today, let's prioritize the gospel. Love you guys.